UFC No Trade Diego Lopes versus Jan Silva is taking place this weekend. And I gotta say this, the main event, I love it. One of the best main events we could have had for a fight night. But the rest of this card is a two-pack of ass. Regardless, I'm gonna be covering every single fight on this card to the best of my knowledge. As much tape as I watched, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. First fight on the card, we got Rodrigo Sezinando versus Daniil Donchenko. I'm gonna go with Daniil Donchenko. I've not been too impressed with whatever highlights I've seen out of Rodrigo Sezinando. Now, I've never watched a full fight from either of these two individuals because I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter. But whatever clips I did see, I thought Sezinando was a pretty boring fighter. And as for Daniil Donchenko, he has been able to knock out most of his competition. So I'm gonna go with Daniil Donchenko at this level in the UFC, where like I wouldn't say bottom feeder level, but it's pretty close to that. Finishing potential is huge. So Daniil Donchenko, I think, has the more capable finishing potential. Therefore, I'm gonna pick him to win this fight against Rodrigo Cezinando. All right, now up next we got Monserrat Rendon versus Elise Pereira. This is not Pereira's sister. I think every prediction video you guys watched probably summed that up. And yeah, that's my way of acknowledging that. But anyways, I'm gonna go with Montserrat Rendon. Now, Elise Pereira, from what I've looked up on Tapology, because I couldn't find any footage of her, she's a very good kickboxer. She's undefeated as a mixed martial artist right now. I think she's like what 5-0. But she hasn't really fought the best levels of competition, and I don't think she's really been tested in the grappling. All right, I know she can strike. She has a lot of KOs, even though I've never really seen her fight because it's all on Tapology. But Montserrat Rendon, I have seen her fights, and I gotta say, even though she's not the best, I do think she'll be able to test Elise Pereira in the grappling. I don't believe that Elise Pereira, what if she was like a few years older, I was like, okay, maybe she'll be able to uh defeat someone who plans to just smudge her up against the canvas. But she's 19 years old. All right. I don't think Elise Pereira's really fought someone like Montserrat Rendon, which although not the best of technical ability, she does come out there, try to nonstop wrestle, and just smudge you up against the canvas. So I'm gonna pick Montserrat Rendon to beat Elise Pereira, because I don't know if Elise Pereira can actually grapple. Whereas Montserrat Rendon, I know she will immediately shoot takedowns from the get go. Now, if Rendon doesn't do that and gets knocked out on the feet, don't come blaming me for getting this pick wrong because that just proves that she's retarded. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Montserrat Rendon, assuming that she's not retarded and assuming that she's gonna grapple nonstop against Elise Pereira. All right, now moving on, we got Alessandro Costa versus Alden Coria. Yeah, I have no idea who Alden Coria is. I just kind of looked him up on Tapology, and I don't know. He doesn't really have any wins that stand out to me. Whereas Alessandro Costa, I do think he's like legitimate, like top 20, 25 ish in the UFC flyweight division. Like you actually have to be good to beat him because Costa's very good at pressuring you up against the fence and just teeing off. All right. The only people that have been able to beat Costa in the UFC are Steve Erceg and Amir Albazi. I do think that those guys are ranked ish level, and I don't really know if Alden Correa is gonna be like top 10-ish level in the first place. So I'm gonna go with Alessandro Costa. And keep in mind, Correa kind of came in on short notice. So that's even more reason as to why I'm gonna doubt this guy. Because I don't really like when regional fighters come in on short notice to try and fight someone who's like actually pretty good in their division. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Alessandro Costa to win this fight. Probably by like round 2 TKO. All right. He's got some nasty hands. And unless Alden Correa's got some special talent that I don't know about, Costa should be able to box him up and knock him out. All right, now up next we got Zachary Reese versus Sedriques Dumas. I'm gonna go with Zachary Reese because it's Sedriques Dumas in 2025. Like, I don't know how anyone's gonna pick Sedriques Dumas to win this fight. Like, you gotta consider this. This guy at this point does not care about being like a improved mixed martial artist. The only thing he does as of like the last couple of years is get arrested on the regular. How do you have more mugshots than UFC fights? All right, I'm making a separate video for Sedriques Dumas later. Hopefully, I get to post it in a couple of hours. But yeah, Sedriques Dumas, yeah, there's just no training. He's not even really talented in the first place. Like, yeah, he'll like able to beat up Dennis Tululin. Like, who hasn't, right? And he has been losing a couple of fights recently against Nursultan Roziboyev, Mikhail Lisachuk, anyone who's actually half decent. And I view Zachary Reese as half decent. Although he hasn't had the best track record recently, he got knocked out by Asmat Bakoev. He got fluke slammed by Cody Brundage. Zachary Reese actually has very good Muay Thai and decent Jiu Jitsu. The only thing I worry about Zachary Reese is his chin and whether or not he's going to try and get up once he gets taken down. I don't think Sedriques Dumas has the capabilities of taking Zachary Reese down, nor do I see Sedriques Dumas having the one punch knockout ability to knock out Zachary Reese out cold. So Zachary Reese, by whatever he wants, I'll say more likely by knockout or decision. Right, he can slow down if he doesn't get the first round knockout. But yeah, I'm gonna say that Zachary Reese should comfortably win this fight. All right, now moving on, we got Jesus Aguilar versus Luis Gurule. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jesus Aguilar on this one. I kind of understand why Luis Gurule is looked at as the favorite because stylistically, this is a good matchup for Luis. Like Luis does a very good job of being the short, stocky guy and just being able to shuck off wrestlers and just trying to return like power shots against them. But the difference is, I think Jesus Aguilar is just much better than any guy Luis Gurule has really fought. Like Luis Gurule barely edged out a decision win on the Contender Series, and then he got knocked out in the second round by Ode Osborne after getting pieced up on the feet. I don't think Jesus Aguilar would lose to Ode Osborne. I think Jesus Aguilar also has been fighting much higher levels of competition in the UFC. He fought Tatsuro Taira, and it's gonna happen that Tatsuro Taira is gonna sub you unless you're Brandon Royval. And then Jesus Aguilar fought Rafael Esteban. Thought that was a reasonably competitive fight. Had Jesus Aguilar stayed on the feet more, I do think Aguilar could have won that fight. Now, again, stylistically, Luis Gurule, it is a bad matchup for Jesus Aguilar. However, I think the experience and overall the level of competition is just completely different. All right, Luis Gurule just came over to the UFC, and so far all he's done is get knocked out by Ode Osborne in the second round. Whereas Jesus Aguilar, even though he's lost to Tatsuro Taira, even though he lost to Rafael Esteban, he's still got some decent wins in the flyweight division. So I'm going to go with Jesus Aguilar to win this fight 29-28 by just taking down Luis Gurule, controlling him, and then even on the feet. I don't think Jesus Aguilar is going to be a complete victim because I don't believe that Luis Gurule has the most technical striking to pick apart Jesus Aguilar. All right, now up next we got Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. Ah, do I pick Tatiana Suarez to win this fight after her last performance against Zhang Weili? Because I do think she can win this. I do believe that this is a much easier matchup for Tatiana Suarez. Like, I don't think Amanda Lemos is really going to be shucking off all of Suarez's takedowns. And I do believe that Lemos has her weaknesses on the ground because she is kind of prone to just getting held down. But I can also see Tatiana Suarez getting boxed up on the feet really easily because Amanda Lemos is a pretty good striker. And Tatiana Suarez kind of has that patchy mix movement where she's just kind of moving like a paraplegic in the cage. And I don't know, it's very ugly. Uh, I'm going to go with I'm gonna go with Tatiana Suarez on this one. I say this very tentatively because again, she is a victim on the feet at times, but in a three rounder where she's not gonna gas out from constantly shooting takedowns, where I don't believe that Amanda Lemos is going to land that many damaging shots because again, even though Amanda Lemos is a good striker, she likes to pick her shots more than Zhang Weili, who can kind of scrap a little bit. And there are more paths to victory for Tatiana Suarez in this fight than when she fought Zhang Weili. So I'm gonna tentatively pick Tatiana Suarez. If you're a gambler watching my videos, don't bet on this fight. Actually, you can maybe bet on Lemos, but I wouldn't really be so confident in either one of these women because both of these women, I feel that have their clear weaknesses, and I don't know. They've looked really bad in some of their past couple of fights. So I'm gonna go with the one that can wrestle a little bit better, and that is Tatiana Suarez. So I'm gonna go with Tatiana Suarez to win this fight. All right, now up next we got Claudio Puelles versus Joaquim Silva. I'm going to tentatively go with Claudio Puelles. What he showed me in the Ferreira fight, it was actually pretty impressive. Ferreira is known as a very well-rounded MMA fighter, and Claudio Puelles was able to do a lot in the grappling. He just couldn't do enough damage on the feet or like in the grappling transitions for ground and pound. I don't think Joaquim Silva's at the level of Ferreira, even though Joaquim Silva is the guy who dropped Arman Sarukian. There's no real thing that he does well. I don't know. Silva, he just kind of goes out there and just makes it a tough fight for anyone. Like, how are you making it a tough fight for Clay Guida at 41 years of age? Like, you should just steamroll Clay Guida if you have any sort of talent. And then he lost to Drakkar Close, who I also don't really rate because Drakkar Close has been going to a lot of iffy decisions as of recently. So I'm gonna go with Claudio Puelles. I do think his wrestling is pretty good, and in the guard, like I believe that Claudio Puelles has some tools. I don't really see any path for him if he chooses to fight on the feet or if Joaquim Silva can defend his takedowns. But at the same time, I don't really believe that Joaquim Silva is good at anything. Right? I've watched like two of his fights, and I still can't tell what he does very well. So I'm gonna go with Claudio Puelles smudging up Joaquim Silva. It's gonna be a pretty boring fight, I will say that. So I'm gonna say that Puelles wins 29-28. Very boring decision. Probably will get booed out of the arena. But yeah, Claudio Puelles will still win. All right, now up next we got Jose Daniel Medina versus Dusko Todorovic. I'm gonna go with I don't want to go with either of these guys, to be honest. Like, both of these guys are absolute garbage, right? They have not won a UFC fight in the last 3 years. And quite frankly, I don't know why either of these guys are signed. But I have to pick someone for this video. So, longtime viewers, all right, they know what this trick is. All right, what I have here is the American quarter. All right, if it lands on heads, I'm going to go with Jose Medina. And if it lands on tails, I'm gonna go with Dusko Todorovic. It landed on tails. I'm going with Dusko Todorovic to win a 29-28 shit fight. Alright. Dusko Todorovic is overall the much better mixed martial artist, and he has more tools in his game. Jose Medina doesn't really do anything other than getting boxed up the entire fight. Like, I've never seen him throw any effective strike in the UFC. All he's been doing is getting knocked out by Atabagatier, getting schooled by Zachary Reese for 3 rounds straight, and he even loses contender series fight. Yeah, I do think he lost his contender series fight, but it was just fun because he kept pushing forward, even though he was getting pieced up. So yeah, Dusko Todorovic, even though I don't rate him either, I do think that he has some tools and some talent. And that's ultimately the difference. All right. Jose Medina kind of at this point, kind of a bag of milk. And there's no real skill that he has that I rate as like UFC quality. Whereas Dusko Todorovic, he can grapple a little bit. And his striking isn't completely awful because he did kind of make him competitive with Zachary Reese. I don't know. Both of these guys are terrible. Would I be surprised if Dusko Todorovic finds a way to lose? Yes, but at the same time, I don't want to pick Jose Medina. I'm going to say that Dusko Todorovic is going to win a 29-28 decision. The first two rounds, I believe that he's going to be able to just minorly outstrike Jose Medina. And then in the third round, Jose Medina starts picking up the action, and Todorovic is going to slow down because he slows down in a lot of his fights. So yeah, Dusko Todorovic, it's going to be a terrible fight, but I do believe that he's going to win. All right, now up next we got Alexander Hernandez versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. I'm gonna go with Carlos Diego Ferreira. And again, I say this tentatively because Carlos Diego Ferreira is 41 years old, and at that age, you could just be absolutely washed. All right, I know Diego Ferreira had that fight with Mateusz Rebecki 2 years ago, and he looked like a world beater out there. But at the same time, like you can't really rely on that because at the age of like 40 plus years old, you could just be washed in your next fight. On the other end, however, Alexander Hernandez, he's on a little bit of a momentum. He's had a couple of wins racked up recently, and he's made a quick turnaround to fight Carlos Diego Ferreira. While I do think that Hernandez is good, I don't think stylistically this matches up very well for Hernandez. Hernandez does a very good job of coming forward and being aggressive in the first round or two, and in the later rounds, he kind of slows down and relies on controlling the pace. Carlos Diego Ferreira is one of the best late round fighters. He does a very good job of weathering the early storm and then proceeding to fraud check you in rounds two and three. That's what Carlos Diego Ferreira does. So Alexander Hernandez, there's a chance that he might clip Diego Ferreira. Like there is a chance, but I don't think so. It's been a while since Hernandez has been able to consistently knock his opponents out. Like I know he knocked out Chase Hooper a couple weeks back, but I don't really think that's like a common occurrence in Hernandez's games recently. So I'm gonna go with Carlos Diego Ferreira to win this fight, probably by late round finish or by like 29-28 dominant decision where Diego Ferreira is pushing the pace starting from the second round. And I don't know. I don't really believe that Hernandez has the tools to stop Carlos Diego Ferreira from either taking this fight to the ground in the later rounds or just boxing cleanly because you had to kind of do that against the Carlos Diego Ferreira to knock him out. All right, now up next we have Santiago Luna versus Quang Lee. I'm gonna go with Santiago Luna. Even though he has never fought in the UFC, all right, if he has any sort of like legitimate talent, he could beat Quang Lee. Quang Lee's only win in the UFC so far is Gaston Bolaños, who I don't believe is like not even like bottom feeder level in the UFC. So I'm gonna say that Santiago Luna, assuming that Dana White's trying to set this guy up for success, all right, because he gave him Quang Lee. I'm gonna say that Luna should win this fight by like what late round TKO. I know that Quang Lee's pretty tough, but I don't believe he has shown anything exceptional outside of his grappling. But his grappling was against Gaston Bolaños, who practically has zero sort of jiu-jitsu or takedown defense. So Santiago Luna, I'm gonna pick him to win this fight. I don't know how, but from what I'm hearing, he's an undefeated Mexican prospect fighting on the Noche card. That's enough for me to pick Santiago Luna to win this fight. All right, now up next we got Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus. A very approachable matchup for Kelvin Gastelum because Dustin Stoltzfus has not been looking the best in it throughout his UFC career. He has some submissions and KOs, like when he knocked out Marc Andre Barriol and when he submitted what's the dude's name? I don't know. I don't know. I just know that he has some sort of submission win. But outside of that, anyone who's like what middle of the pack in the middleweight division has been able to beat Dustin Solsfist. Like there's Alton Rosie Boye, Bruno Ferreira, Abus Magomedov. Who else was there? Gerald Mearshart, Rodolfo Vieira. I think Kelvin Gastelum is in a similar position to those guys. So, and I don't believe that Dustin Solstice, he doesn't have the extensive grappling game to be able to consistently take down Kelvin Gastelum at will. He doesn't really have the threat on the feet to drop Kelvin Gastelum. I don't really see how Dustin Solstice is going to win unless he flukes some spinning elbow. Because outside of that, I think he's much worse than Kelvin Gastelum. Like, I think he's much slower. I don't think he has the wrestling capabilities of Kelvin Gastelum. So I'm gonna pick Kelvin Gastelum to win this fight. 30-27, 29-28. Maybe Dustin Solsvith starts to pick up in the later rounds, but I don't. At the same time, I also think that Dustin Solsvith skill wise doesn't match up to most UFC fighters in the first place. All right, now moving on, we got Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon. I'm gonna go with Jared Gordon because I haven't been too impressed with what Rafa Garcia has been able to show recently. He took 43-year-old Vince Pichel to a decision. He took 41-year-old Clay Guida to a decision. And outside of that, yeah, he's been losing to good competition, but that don't make you good competition just because you lost to them. All right. I believe that Jared Gordon, although he's not the best opponent Rafa Garcia's fought, right? Jared Gordon, like, kind of also lost to Grant Dawson. I believe that Jared Gordon, you need to be a good fighter in order to beat him, right? Unless you have some sort of elite level jujitsu game or you can snipe people on the feet at will, you're not really going to beat Jared Gordon in a dogfight, all right? Jared Gordon does a very good job of pressuring you up against the fence and just making you work, right? He arguably should have beat Paddy Pimblett. He definitely beat Nazareth Haqparast. And outside of that, he had a head clash loss with Bobby Green, which nobody really counts because that was Bobby Green literally intentionally trying to headbutt him. So I don't believe that Jared Gordon hasn't lost that many fights, even though his record suggests otherwise. So I'm gonna go with Jared Gordon to win this fight. It should be pretty clear that Jared Gordon's the much better fighter. Like, I don't really see Hapa Garcia has someone with elite level ground game. Like, he can take down Jared Gordon down maybe, but again, Jared Gordon's also very good at getting back up to his feet. And I don't believe that Hapa Garcia has the submission tools to get Jared Gordon out there. And on the feet, Rafa Garcia, he's getting boxed up by 43-year-old Vince Pichel. Jared Gordon should do a much better job than Vince Pichel because Jared Gordon's not 30 what? No. He's not 43 years old. And I believe that Jared Gordon, you have to be like top 15 caliberish level in order to beat him. So yeah, Jared Gordon should win this fight pretty comfortably. All right, now up next we got Rob Font versus David Martinez. I'm not going to pick David Martinez to win this fight. I'm going with Rob Font. How are you going to pick David Martinez in this situation? He's coming in as a short notice replacement for Raul Rosas Jr. And so far, David Martinez hasn't really proved anything in the UFC. I know he knocked out Simon Oliveira a couple of months back. La di da, so has everyone else who's fought Simon Oliveira. And outside of that, David Martinez has been going to a lot of decisions with lower levels of competition. So I don't believe that David Martinez has the skill sets to beat Rob Font. I know Rob Font has his weaknesses, but is David Martinez really going to shoot takedowns on Rob Font nonstop? Is David Martinez really just going to walk down Rob Font? I don't think so. David Martinez, he is very karate heavy with meaning that he's just going to blitz in every time he wants to attack. There's no real like change up or feints or setups. David Martinez, all he does, he just stands out of range and then blitzes in whenever he wants to attack. All right. I believe that Rob Font, he's a little bit too experienced for that. All right. It's not going to work all the time. Like, maybe it'll work the first few times in round one, but I don't really see David Martinez being able to catch Rob Font like that. And as the fight progresses, Rob Font should be able to build up and just to fraud check David Martinez, right? I don't rate David Martinez any part of his game outside of his ability to blitz. Right? It's not like he's throwing elaborate combinations. It's not like he's throwing like any sort of feints into a high quality shots. Rob Font should be able to box up David Martinez by kind of being close to him. All right, this is one of the fights where he doesn't even have to fear the grappling threat because David Martinez isn't a guy that really likes to wrestle. So I'm going to go with Rob Font to win this fight. 29-28, 30-27. Maybe David Martinez does well in the first round, but after that, I don't really think he's going to have much success. Rob Font should win this fight. Moving on to the main event. Uh, Diego Lopes versus Jean Silva. I'm gonna go with John Silva. I've been feeling that John Silva was going to win this fight all week because I believe stylistically, this is not a great matchup for Diego Lopes. Now, Before I get any flack in the comments, I love Diego Lopes. I picked him to beat Alexander Volkanovski, and that unfortunately didn't happen. I'm a huge fan of Diego Lopes. However, there are a couple of concerning factors in this fight. The one thing I'm concerned about is the fact that Diego Lopes does not have the best footwork, right? He's going to spend a lot of time trying to chase John Silva, and you don't really want to do that against a guy like John Silva, who's very educated in terms of striking, selecting his shots, and distance management. Diego Lopes kind of relies on someone to get in the phone booth with him in order to find success. And I don't believe that Jean Silva is going to stand there and let Diego Lopes tee off on him because Jean Silva, again, nasty shot selector, and he can maintain distance better than almost anybody Diego Lopes has fought, minus Volkanovski. And also, you really want to test your toughness against Jean Silva. So far, he's been able to knock out nearly every single opponent he's fought. I don't think Diego Lopes would really want to do that, even though he has an iron chin and can tank a couple of shots. And last but not least, I know a lot of people might think that Diego Lopes is the much more proven contender, but realistically, who has Diego Lopes won against that is much better than John Silva? Like, I do not rate Brian Ortega at this point in his career because all he's been doing recently is losing. Unless you're Yair Rodriguez because you're weak as fuck on the ground. And he beat Danny. He took Danny Ige to a decision. Is John Silva gonna take Danny Ige to a decision? No. And say what you will about the weight cuts and stuff like that. I still think that John Silva will win against Danny Ige. I also believe that John Silva is better than Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Yusuf by a mile. So as far as I'm concerned, even though Jean Silva has not proven himself, he's still better than nearly every single one of Diego Lopez's wins. All right. And then you factor that in with the style matchup, how Jean Silva is just a much technically clean striker, how he's just going to be so much faster than Diego Lopez, and also the fact that Diego Lopez isn't a guy that really pushes the pace on opponents. All right. Jean Silva might get broken by someone who shoots nonstop takedowns like a Movsar Evloyev. But is Diego Lopez the type of fighter to do that? No. That's why I'm going to go with John Silva to win this fight. By round 2 or 3, vicious knockout. First round, Diego Lopez might have some success. But I believe that Gian Silva is ultimately going to find his reads. And in the second and third round, as Diego Lopez starts to slow down, Jean Silva will be able to find the shots and ultimately, unfortunately, put away Diego Lopez. Alright, that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so I can get this channel monetized. And hopefully I can quit my part-time job as a result. But other than that, though, again, leave a comment down below what you guys think about the main event, who you guys have winning the main event, because let's be honest, that's the only fight that really we give a fuck about. But yeah, other than that though, I will probably see you guys in a few hours. Peace.